of Kundalini, and part of it is learning how to breathe. The other part of it is learning how to get into Kundalini postures so that you could cause a kind of jump-starting, almost like having a flint and sparking a flint next to a combustible material and causing a certain amount of shock to the base of the spine to start it up. So there are different ways to actually start Kundalini up, through breathing, through eating, through fasting, through meditation, and so forth, which you could probably go online and punch in the name Shakti and see if I think it's Ralayama Shakti is his name, but he has a book out on Kundalini that's excellent. And going into all of the rare books, like www.healthresearch.com may have some excellent books on Kundalini exercises. But I'd like to maybe touch upon a real problem that's happening essentially in Western civilization or in places where they're high industrialized nations, where people are clustered together and where there's a lot of industrial factories and oil refineries and stuff like that. What we found in our investigation and what we put into the book, The Wounded Womb, about dealing with women's diseases, is that the number one problem in what we call male impotence today, as well as female impotence, infertility, is PCB saturation. Now, we don't tend to, after medical science or a researcher comes out and says, okay, this is the problem with our environment, we're saturated with that. Once the news does a few things about it and shoves that news into the old news pile, nobody thinks that it's still going on. We think that because we don't hear it on the news every day, that somehow it has gone away, when in fact that is not the case. The number one problem with impotence, male impotence, barring other factors that we'll talk about a little later, is PCB. Now, PCB saturation has been the number one problem for a very long time. PCBs are polychlorinated biphenols. The problem is that male populations in industrial levels have seen virtually a 65% drop in sperm count since 1945, since they dropped the atomic bomb. And that with all of the atomic bomb tests that we've had going on over the last, say, 40 to 50 years, the levels of toxic radiation poisoning and residual radiation from all of these tests are high and very concentrated in the areas of the reproductive regions of men and women. In fact, PCB exposure in the mother's wombs over the past 50 years has caused the male lingam or the male penis to develop smaller when they matured as men. And we're beginning to see the kind of havoc that phytoestrogens, based on the toxins from insecticides and other industrial poisons, affecting what are known as estrogen receptor sites in males and females, causing these kinds of problems, mimicking estrogen to cause certain reactions in the body that are not natural. Over the past 50 years, and this is something that we all need to think about, over the past 50 years, what is known as the blood panel levels of testosterone in men have dropped to severe critical lows. The normal lows, or the normal highs, or the normal levels for young men, say ages 18 to 27 to 30, the normal highs in young men should be 900 to 1,000 per square millimeter of blood in the blood panel levels. But young men today have blood panel levels of testosterone that measure 400 to 500 only. And those men who are over 50 only have 200 to 300 or less. of testosterone. Now, I know that this is a very hot button point, but with all these phytoestrogens in our environment, the scientists, especially biologists, have found that frogs are disappearing, that the alligators, otters, polar bears, which they say are dying because of the encroachment of man, which is nonsense, polar bears, fish, and so forth, they're finding out that the males are born with atrophied testicles, atrophied sexual organs, or no sexual organs at all. And that these phytoestrogens are destroying the hormonal integrity of the animal life on this planet. Now, with all of that happening, and that these animals, which are used by scientists as markers to be studied in humans, the high level of homosexuality that is now permeated across the planet, which is now being said, well, homosexuality has always been here. It's a normal thing. People are just coming out now and celebrating it. No, that's nonsense. We have this myopic view, the way the European has taught us, is that everything that they do is correct, and that if there is some kind of offshoot or a penalty or pathology that comes out of their science and their research, then that's just something that's part of what was only potential, not the fact that they have destroyed the environmental integrity of the planet and thus created conditions where homosexuality could rise. But now accepting and embracing homosexuality as normal because they don't want to do anything about the levels of toxicity that is on this planet. So to say that the male animals in the wild, who are used by scientists as indicators or markers for what is happening to the environment, to say that frogs are disappearing or frogs are being born without any sex organs, without any gonads, that otters are born without any penises, alligators not feeling like mating, these things are somehow just focused in the animal kingdom without bleeding over into the human kingdom, is ridiculous, and it's stupid and myopic, and it tends to make science or the people who are dealing with science, I guess, succumb to political correctness about what the reality behind homosexuality in our society is today. Let me just go on with this to say that young men of the last 2 generations have also been exposed to high levels of these phytoestrogens in their foods, especially vegetarians in the last 2 generations, with a heavy emphasis on this product called soy. Young men eating beef and other flesh products are doubly exposed to estrogens injected into cows to accelerate their growth. Cow estrogens or bovine estrogens are molecularly structured larger and to fit that of the cow. And when young girls are drinking the milk or eating these foods, you're beginning to see young girls accelerating in their growth at a very young age. I've had mothers come to me and tell me of young girls as young as 8 and 9 and 10 having their menstrual cycle, and this is becoming more and more frequent. But of course, doctors are now adapting to the problem and saying, well, that's normal. Just because it was normal for us to get ours at 17 and 18, to have it at 9 and 10 is nothing wrong, which is more crap that they're pushing to the people. The fact that we eat a female cow or the female bovine, which is the cow more than we do eat the bull, but they're also in there, should tell us also about the fact that the putting in or just the estrogenic material that the flesh is made from should affect girls as